We found our forefathers doing this, so we are going to follow them. So there is no really, they have no hujjah, they have no reasoning, no sound reasoning at all. They just say, we found our fathers doing so and we are going to follow suit. That's the only evidence that they have, subhanAllah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala details the dialogue that happened between Ibrahim and those people. When he said, وَكَيْفَ أَخَافُ مَا أَشْرَكْتُمْ وَلَا تَخَافُونَ أَنَّكُمْ أَشْرَكْتُمْ بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُنَزِّلْ بِهِ عَلَيْكُمْ سُلْطَانًا فَأَيُّ الْفَرِيقَيْنِ أَحَقُّ بِالْأَمْنِ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. He said, I have no fear for what you have taken as partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how come you have no fear that you have committed polytheism against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You should be fearing and fearful of Allah, not the other way around. So فَأَيُّ الْفَرِيقَيْنِ أَحَقُّ بِالْأَمْنِ, which part is more deserving of security and safety? فَأَيُّ الْفَرِيقَيْنِ أَحَقُّ بِالْأَمْنِ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said then, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُم بِظُلْمٍ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. Those who believed and did not tarnish their belief and their faith with polytheism, those are the ones who will have security, and those are the ones who are guided, and those are the ones who are guided. Subhanallah. And all of the ayat that Ibrahim looked at the planet. They say it's a Zahra. فلما أفل قال لا أحب الآفلين فلما رأى القمر بازغا قال هذا ربي فلما أفل قال لئن لم يهدني ربي لأكونن من القوم الضالين and so forth. فلما رأى الشمس بازغة قال هذا ربي هذا أكبر فلما أفلت قال يا قوم إني بريء مما تشركون. I am innocent of what you have taken partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These planets and stars can do me nothing, cannot harm me, nor can they benefit me. And then the other encounter that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about in the story of Ibrahim was his encounter with those who took idols as deities, took the idols as deities, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala detailed the debate with them, and that Ibrahim also alayhi salam showed them how false they are, how false they were in taking those idols as deities. And we know the story that when they had a celebration away from their town, Ibrahim alayhi salam went to their temple and took an axe or a hammer and smashed those deities, and then put in the hands of the greatest of them the axe or the hammer. And then when they came back from their celebration, they looked at their deities smashed, and they said, who did that? He is a wrongdoer. And then they said, we heard a person named Ibrahim. He had always criticized those deities, and they asked to summon him. And he came, and they asked him, أَنْتَ فَعَلْتَ هَذَا بِآلِهَتِنَا يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ? Did you do this to our gods, O Ibrahim? He said, بَلْ فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ هَذَا. He said, no, this idol, the greatest of them, he was the culprit. He did it. So ask them if they can, speak, or if they can talk. And when he said that, he established something against them. فَرَجَعُوا إِلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ قَالُوا إِنَّكُمْ أَنْتُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. They realized how senseless they were. But then, again, ثُمَّ نُكِسُوا عَلَى رُؤُوسِهِمْ. He said, well, you know, Ibrahim, that they do not speak, so why do you ask us to ask them? ثُمَّ نُكِسُوا عَلَى رُؤُوسِهِمْ. Subhanallah. Despite this hujjah, this proof that he provided for them practically. He did it practically, in a practical way. He, subhanAllah, guided them to this, to realize how false they were. But as I said, arrogance always comes in the way. And arrogant people, usually when they are defeated, they turn against their opponent with what? Violence, with عنف, with violence. قالوا حرقوه وانصروا آلهتكم. Burn him and support your gods or your deities. قالوا حرقوه وانصروا آلهتكم. And they prepared a great fire. And even ignorant women at the time, it was said that they, the sick ones of them, they said if those gods cured them, they would donate more wood to greaten the fire that Ibrahim was to be thrown into. Subhanallah. And they dig a big pit and put a lot of wood there and ignited the wood. And the fire, it was said, was a very great fire. And they brought something called the catapult, al-manjaniq. Manjaniq is a device that used to throw or cast stones at castles. When you siege a city or a castle and it has walls all around it, and you want to smash those walls down, you use this device that is called catapult or manjaniq in Arabic. And it throws big stones at the walls, to break them down. So they tied Ibrahim alayhi salam in this device. He was tied and he was thrown into the fire. And it was said that Jibreel alayhi salam came to him at that moment and he said, "Do you need help?" And Ibrahim was answering, "Not from you." Ibrahim alayhi salam said, "I do not need help from you." But obviously he needs help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it was said, he said, "Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel." Sufficient is Allah for me, and He is the one I depend on the most. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. When he said that, and then he was cast into the fire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Qulna ya naru kuni bardan wa salaman ala Ibrahim." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the fire, commanded the fire, He said, "Be cool and safe on Ibrahim." If he said only be cool, he will probably died out of freezing, right? But he said, be cool and safe too. Be cool and safe. كوني بردا وسلاما على إبراهيم وأرادوا به كيدا فجعلناهم الأخسرين. And they mocked and conspired against him, but they, the outcome, that they were the losers. فجعلناهم, we made them to be the losers. فجعلناهم الأخسرين. And Ibrahim alayhi salam was sitting in the fire as if he was sitting in a beautiful garden. Nothing touched him, nothing happened to him. And when the fire extinguished, he came out, mashallah, not harmed at all. They were astonished, of course, the elite of them, the chiefs and of his qawm. But that, subhanallah, made some of them believe in Ibrahim and followed him, but others still, despite the fact that they saw this happening, they still were ignorant and arrogant, and they did not believe still in Ibrahim alayhi salam, even though they saw this supernatural mu'jiza or sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Despite of all of that, they remained unbelievers. When this happened, Ibrahim left. وقال إني مهاجر إلى ربي سيهدين. وقال إني مهاجر إلى ربي سيهدين. He said, I am going to migrate, to Allah for the sake of Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide me. وقال إني مهاجر إلى ربي سيهدين. And when he did that, there was this Namrud. Namrud was a king at the time, and he heard that Ibrahim alayhi salam, what happened to him in the fire. And Namrud was claiming to be God at that, his Godhead. He was claiming to be a deity, and we know the hiwar that happened between him and Ibrahim alayhi salam. Say, ألم ترى الذي حاج إبراهيم في ربه. Don't you see the one who debated with Ibrahim regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? ألم ترى الذي حاج إبراهيم في ربه أن أتاه الله الملك. And because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him sovereignty and gave him kingdom, he became arrogant and he thought that he was ilah, he was a deity or God. ألم ترى الذي حاج إبراهيم في ربه أن أتاه الله الملك إذ قال إبراهيم ربي الذي يحيي ويميت قال أنا أحيي وأميت. Ibrahim said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revives souls and he makes them die, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes someone alive and makes someone dead. He says أنا أحيي وأميت. He says no, I am I'm the one who does that. أنا أحيي وأميت. And he brought somebody who was condemned to death, and he said, I forgive you. I said, okay, see, I'm reviving this person. I'm giving him life. I could have killed him. And then he brought, قال أنا أحيي وأميت, and then he brought someone and he condemned him to death. And he said, this is alive, this person is alive, and I now made him dead. So Ibrahim alayhi salam did not want to respond to that kind of reasoning, which is a false way. It's a getting around the topic, right? It's getting around. So he did not continue debating in that direction. Instead he says, قال إبراهيم فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأتي بها من المغرب. He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the sun rise from the east. Why don't you make the sun rise from the west? فبهت الذي كفر. He was utterly defeated and he was speechless. He could not, what else? And this is, subhanAllah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another ayah, وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ نَرْفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ مَّن نَّشَاءُ إِنَّ رَبَّكَ حَكِيمٌ عَلِيمٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Ibrahim this sound reasoning and this sound way of convincing people. Although some of them were not convinced, they are still arrogant and they continued to be astray, despite the fact they know that what he was telling them was the truth. But they did not believe out of arrogance or out of interest. Somebody will lose his sovereignty, will lose his money, will lose, subhanallah, his interest.
Just wondering if anybody has this car parked outside, they left their lights on.
We have a Ford, a red Ford with a plate number BXRC 360 or 360, 360.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, BXRC 360.
Yeah. Their light is on the whole time.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. And Ibrahim tried to, alayhi salam, with his people to convince them. But subhanallah, for no avail. He said, subhanallah, about the idols. هل يسمعونكم إذ تدعون? Do you hear them? Do they hear you when you call upon them? هل يسمعونكم إذ تدعون؟ أو ينفعونكم أو يضرون? Or do they benefit you? Or do they harm you? He tried to reason with them, but subhanallah, they did not respond positively to him. Subhanallah, this is what, as we said, people when they lose the debate, arrogant people when they lose the debate, they resort to something else, to falsehood, basically, to falsehood, or they resort to violence, subhanallah, and persecution, and persecution. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always makes the righteous victorious. إن العاقبة للمتقين فاصبر إن العاقبة للمتقين. And another encounter with Ibrahim alayhi salam, when the Malaika visited him, هل أتاك حديث ضيف إبراهيم المكرمين إذ دخلوا عليه فقالوا سلاما قال سلام قوم منكرون. And you know, he was visited by the angels, and he tried to host them and you know, to be generous to them. Ibrahim was very well known for that. It was said that he never eats except if a guest eats with him, and if no guest knocks on his door, he used to go out and look for a guest. Subhanallah. He was very generous. He would go out of his house and he would look for someone to host and to eat with him. So when these angels came, sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he commanded his wife to slaughter a calf, you know, فَجَاءَ بِعِجْلٍ سَمِينٍ أَوْ حَنِيذٍ in another ayah. So he you know, brought a very mashallah sound calf, and he prepared it for him, he cooked it for him, and he presented that to them. And when they did not extend their hands to eat, he became afraid. So usually the tradition, if you invite people to eat in your house and they do not eat, that means that they have ill intention. They are to harm somebody. So this is the tradition, even in the Arabic, world. When their guests do not eat their food, that means that they are, intending harm for them. So Ibrahim alayhi salam became afraid. فأوجس منهم خيفة. So he sensed fear. He became fearful. And they realized, of course, malaika, they were angels from Allah. فأوجس منهم خيفة قالوا لا تخف. Do not be afraid. قالوا لا تخف وبشروه بغلام عليم. And they gave him the glad tidings of a son. And at that time, Ibrahim was very old, and his wife was very old. فأقبلت امرأته في سرة فصكت وجهها وقالت عجوز عقيم. She was sterile, she was barren as well. She was old and sterile, barren. She did not, childless. She cannot bring forth children. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, commanded the angels to give him a glad tidings of a son. His name is Ishaq. فأقبلت امرأته في سرة.
The Christians say this is Allah. Astaghfirullah. I have Ahmed didn't say that. It's Allah and two angels came to the Ibrahim, and Allah who make adultery with the.
إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون لا حول ولا قوة.
سيدنا إسحاق is the son of God too.
I have Ahmed didn't say that.
So who basically Ismail alayhi salam was born before Ishaq, because Ismail's mother is Hajar, not Sarah, and this lady or this woman is Sarah when she said فأقبلت امرأته في صرة فصكت وجهها وقالت عجوز عقيم, because Sarah, or they call it Sarah or Sarah, كانت عقيما. She gave Hajar to Ibrahim alayhi salam in marriage so that he can have sons. And Ismail was born. He was 13 years old or so when Ishaq was born. So he was 13 years old, and his brother Ishaq has just been born. So فأقبلت امرأته في سرة فصكت وجهها وقالت عجوز عقيم قالوا كذلك قال ربك إنه هو الحكيم العليم. إنه هو الحكيم العليم. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained, for He is the wise, the most knowledgeable. Right? So in another ayah فضحكت فبشرناها بإسحاق. Right? ومن وراء إسحاق يعقوب. And even they gave her the glad tidings not only of Ishaq but also of Jacob or Yaqub. Right? We call him Yaqub. In English it says Jacob. Yes. وإسحاق, this is something that is, it's good to know. Ishaq in Hebrew is when somebody laughs. Why? Because when she was given those glad tidings, she laughed. فضحكت. And the child was named Ishaq, Idhak, Ishaq, Idhak, Ishaq. Is there similarity? Ishaq, Idhak. Is there similarity? Can you sense the similarity? Idhak, Ishaq. So it means to smile, yes, to laugh or to smile. Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her the glad tidings of Ishaq and min wara Ishaq Yaqub at that moment. And then the angels told Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam that they are going to destroy the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities of Lut alayhi salam, because Nabiullah Lut, he left Ibrahim to live in this city, a very wicked city in which wicked people used to live, and they were committing fahisha, they were committing indecency, and they were committing indecency with the same gender, so these malaika came and told Ibrahim that we are going to destroy this city. And Ibrahim, because he was so merciful and so forbearant and so loving, he tried to debate with the malaika. He tried to them, give them respite, give them some time. They might, go back and repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he tried to do that, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, told him that this is something ordained by Allah, and the ordinance of Allah cannot be debated, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not return on His command. Once the command is issued, that's it. يجادلنا في قوم لوط. He was debating us about the people of Lut. يا إبراهيم أعرض عن هذا. Oh Ibrahim, ignore this. Don't concern yourself with this. يا إبراهيم أعرض عن هذا إنه قد جاء أمر ربك. إنه قد جاء أمر ربك. The command of your Lord has come, and no one can prevent it from happening. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, as you know, destroyed the village of the people of Lut. فجعلنا عليها سافلها وأمطرنا عليها حجارة من سجيل. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stoned the city and made what's down up, flipped the whole city because of their wickedness and what they used to commit. And of course, we know that also the wife of Lut alayhi salam was amongst those who were punished because she used to tell about the guests of Lut. Whenever he had guests, she used to go out to her people and tells them about them. Tells that Lut has guests and they will come. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala afflicted them with many things. فطمسنا على أعينهم فكيف كان فذوقوا عذابي ونذر ولقد راودوه عن ضيفه فطمسنا أعينهم فذوقوا عذابي ونذر ولقد صبحهم بكرة عذاب مستقر فذوقوا عذابي ونذر. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about Qawm Lut in many verses of the Quran, the people of Lut, and because of what they did, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala afflicted them with a painful punishment, and the place where they used to live, it is said that to be the lowest place on earth. غلبت الروم في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون في بضع سنين. Now the place that was destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the lowest, subhanallah, part on earth, is the lowest part on earth when it's compared to the level of the sea, subhanallah. And it's near the Dead Sea, near the Dead Sea, yes. Yeah, Jordan, yes. Subhanallah. أدنى الأرض سدوم وغمورة وعمورة. عمورة وسدوم, they call it Sodom and Gomorrah in English. Sadum وعمورة.
It's not the city of Pompeii.
No. Yeah, subhanallah, an affliction of Allah. Sheikh Uthman.
I have a question. Ibrahim or Lut, they lived at the same time, right?
Yes, they lived at the same time. His nephew. Lut is his nephew.
Lut was following Ibrahim alayhi salam?
Yes, he believed in Ibrahim and followed Ibrahim.
No.
Yes.
When Ibrahim said that وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ,
Yes.
how is that relationship, or that ayah will add الأنبياء يعني كان هناك بعض الأنبياء قبل إبراهيم أو إبراهيم هو أول من الأنبياء والرسل؟
لا، إبراهيم لم يكن هو أول الأنبياء.
آدم هو كان نبيا.
هو كان، نعم.
آدم كان نبيا ما كان رسولا، صح؟
نعم.
لكن كان هناك بعض الرسل.
ثم نوح. أيوة نوح.
وشيت وإدريس.
بعدين شيت وإدريس، بعدين صالح وهود. أيوة.
He's called أبو الأنبياء because there's an آية لأن سيدنا الله أكرم سيدنا إبراهيم أن يكون خليله، يعني أعطاها البركة في ذريته.
هو جعل يعني ذريته أنبياء، يعني هو عنده خاصية أن يعني الأنبياء منه، يعني من ذريته هو ونوح. ولقد أرسلنا نوحا وإبراهيم وجعلنا في ذريتهما النبوة والكتاب. يعني so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يعني made from their progeny prophets and messengers. نعم. لا، الإسلام كلهم مسلمون. طبعا شيخ عثمان تعرف هذا من آدم عليه السلام. كل الأنبياء والمرسلين كانوا مسلمين، والدين كان من البداية الإسلام. إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. نعم. وإذا تتلى عليهم آياتنا قالوا وإذا لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. There's an ayah indicates that that those people were Muslims from before. إِنَّا كُنَّا من قبل مسلمين. We were Muslims from before. So Islam is a religion of all of the prophets and messengers from the beginning. As I said, those religions currently named so and so, they were man-made. Those names are man-made names. There's, for example, if we take Christianity is the name itself is a man-made name. The Jews at the time of Jesus alayhi salam, they used to expel Christians from the synagogues. They were calling them Christians. So this term first was issued by the Jews against the followers of Jesus. So that's why Christ is al-Masih, basically. Christ means Al-Masih. So they were naming them Al-Masihiyun, the followers of the Messiah, the Christ, the followers of the Christ. So it was basically a derogatory term used by the Jews against the followers of Jesus at the time when they were expelling them from their synagogues. And then from there came Christians. From that came the name Christians. Jews were also named after Judah. After Judah, one of the 12 sons of Yaqub alayhi salam. So these are man-made names. They are not religions. They named their religion Christianity, and they named their religion Judaism. But the deen was Islam. From Allah was Islam. Yes.
The reason why I asked you this question is because when Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam كان يتبع الدين الحنيف دين إبراهيم.
ملة إبراهيم.
And we refer that نتبع ملة إبراهيم.
No, حنيف.
So that's why I'm relating Ibrahim in relation to other prophets.
Yes.
Why Ibrahim is the one that was like a specified.
Specified.
ملة أبينا إبراهيم.
ملة أبينا إبراهيم. Yes. Well, because maybe it is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to reward Ibrahim because of his dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and because of his subhanallah struggle with the people of shirk. Because mainly if you look at the story of Ibrahim, he was all the time advocating monotheism, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and struggling against the polytheists, against those who take partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, against shirk. So he was very dedicated in that sense. First with his father, second with the people who used to worship the stars and the planets, third with the people who used to worship the idols. And when he was young, his dad was making those idols and was selling them and was ordering Ibrahim to sell them as well. So he very much related to advocating monotheism than any other prophet. والله ورسوله أعلم. تفضل.
I think it is very interesting lecture. Thank you very
بارك
much.
الله فيك.
Do we know how long did he live? How was he given prophecy? What was his book or message or instructions?
Ibrahim alayhi salam. Well, it is mentioned in Surah Al-A'la that he has scriptures. صحف إبراهيم وموسى, right? At the end, صحف إبراهيم وموسى. So it was mentioned that Ibrahim had received scriptures. Historically speaking, we don't know about these scriptures at all. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ما كان إبراهيم يهوديا ولا نصرانيا.